are going to get started.
Awesome. Well,
All
welcome.
right. Hey, everybody.
Thank you, Nate. That was a great introduction. Hello, I'm Bethany. I work with Singer and the education team, and this is Sonny.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sonny Grant, and we are so excited to be here. For any of you who have come back, this is our
third one.
Yeah, oh my gosh.
So we're wrapping up our Holiday in July series today. If you missed our previous two classes the last 2 weeks, they are available on michaels.com and on Michael's YouTube channel. So be sure to check those out. This week we're making something pretty fun and I really like it. This is one of my favorite ones we've done. This is a little Christmas tree door hanger. Has some little bells, fun little thing to make for the holiday to decorate your home. And then we also, like Nate mentioned, we have a bonus project. We'll show you guys that towards the end and we'll drop the instructions for that for you to do on your own time later. So we'll put that in the chat. But we also have two people helping us today, Amy and Amy, and they are here to help answer any questions about our project. They'll let us know if we need to answer or readdress something during the class. But they also are there to help answer any questions about the machines we're using. We're using two different machines today briefly, but we have 3 different machines here on set that are all available through michaels.com and your Michaels craft stores locally.
Yeah, so we are very excited to be here. And everyone, if you were here last week, something that we just ran out of time talking about the ruffler. And so what Bethany and I decided is we're just going to do a really quick little bit of information on the ruffler for you. So we are going to do that. And I see at the bottom, some of you are actually telling us where you're from. Definitely, I saw North Carolina, I saw a couple of other things, but also if you would, tell us what machine you're sewing on today. And that just helps us out a little bit. So now we are going to go ahead and talk about the ruffler for just a moment. So Nate,
and last week this is what we're going to be showing you. So last week we did the kitchen towel with the ruffle at the bottom that we added to the towel. And there's a couple of ways to make ruffles or gathers, but there is a ruffler foot that you can get through singer.com. And I think Amy's going to drop the link to that, but Sonny's going to go over a little bit more detail on how that ruffler foot works in all the different settings, because we didn't really get to do all that last week. So, but this is what we're trying to achieve.
Yeah, that's what we're going for. So, Nate, if you could switch to our other camera here.
Perfect.
Wonderful. And what we're going to do is I already have my ruffler is already set up on my machine. So that's a really, we talked about it last week. You do have to remove your presser foot ankle and put the ruffler on and actually put this little piece here over, and you're going to see it as it comes up and down here. It's a little piece that goes over the needle bar. So that is all set up, but I am going to turn my machine just a little bit and hopefully get the right angle for you, because this is the setting that people were asking about last week. And there is a setting that says 1, 6, and 12. And what that means is you're going to get a pleat or a ruffle every stitch, every 6 stitches, or every 12 stitches. And we just didn't have the time, or I didn't go back actually to show you what the 12 looks like. But what we kind of figured is today, we're going to show you what they all look like on one long piece of fabric. And then you can see the differences. So that's what we're going to do. I also want to share with you what I did. If you remember, for some of you who were here last week, if you weren't here last week, what we did is we folded a piece of fabric in half. But I did something a little different. I basted that piece of fabric, and then I did it's called a multiple zigzag stitch, but I finished the top edge, and that way it won't fray as easy. So if you have a fabric that frays a lot, that way it's not going to fray for you. So I did that little prep work before I'm using the ruffler. Now, when I put the ruffler or the fabric in my ruffler, I do like to pull it all the way to the back. See how I've got it all the way starting at the back. And the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hold my threads before I put my presser foot down. And everyone that's on the call, when you have the setting at 1, so right now I have my setting at 1, so it's going to pleat every stitch. I like to use a very long stitch length, as long as it can be. So my stitch length is all the way at 4 on my Singer M3400. Yours might be at 5 for a different machine, but as long as it will go. And everyone, you need a straight stitch in the center needle position. So straight stitch, center needle position, and stitch length as long as it will go. And what I'm going to do is I do like to hold my threads to start, and I'm just going to start sewing. And what you're going to see, oh my gosh, look at that. It's just pleating away. And I am going to just trim that top thread from the back. If I can get that real quick. Because I don't want it to be pulling. But can you guys see that, how that's working? Isn't that fabulous how that's just
so
gonna
fast.
and it's so fast. So every stitch you're getting that pleat. When I change my stitch length all the way up to 6, or excuse me, my ruffler to 6, I am going to change my stitch length to about 2.5. So when I change that, it's again, I change from pleating every stitch to pleating every 6 stitches. I'm taking my stitch length to 2.5. See how it's changing? And it is only pleating every 6 stitches. And what we missed last week is now I'm going to change, so it's going to pleat every 12 stitches. And then the final little setting is actually a little star, and that means it's not going to pleat at all. So if you need to do some basting or some stitching,
Take the
you
whole
don't have to.
ruffler foot off.
Yeah, isn't that great?
Yes.
So it is wonderful. All right, so there's your basically you're not pleating at all. Then you get your pleats every 12 stitches that I'm going to move. So every 6 stitches. And then right at the beginning, that is a lot of pleats. That's a lot of ruffles right there. And that is every stitch. So hopefully that makes more, hopefully that helps you guys. And we're sorry we missed that, but we thought it was very worthwhile to be able to have you all see this again. So Amy, are there any questions about the ruffler? Because now I'm going to put the machine away and we're going to get started really with what we're supposed to be doing today.
They were just asking if the stitch length would change from the 6 to the 12 setting.
Great question. The stitch length, I did not change my stitch length when I went from 6 to 12. I left it the same, but guys, that really becomes a personal preference to you. If you change your stitch length a little bit longer, the pleats will be further away. Shorter, the pleats will be closer together. So it really becomes a personal preference.
And like we talked last week, it's important to do a test piece like Sonny just did before you do your final piece for your project you're working on, to make sure you have it set to get the ruffles that you want.
Yeah, you just want to try and get it where it looks nice. Anything else? All right, so I think we are, so now guys, so if we can go back to our other camera for a moment, thanks Nate, is I think I'm gonna move this machine out of the way and Bethany's gonna get started with our other
Actual
project
today.
Yeah,
Yes. So as I mentioned, we are going to make a Christmas tree door hanger. What we chose to do, or what I chose to do for this project, is 5 different fabrics. All of these fabrics are available through michaels.com, including the ribbon at the top and the bells. I got it all from Michaels. But we chose to do 5 different fabrics. You could just do 2 or 3. You could do them all the same. It's totally up to you. But that's what we did. You should already have your instructions printed out and the prep work done and ready to get started if you are sewing along with us. That would include having your pieces of fabric already cut. So all of your squares already cut. You should have a front and a back for each section of the tree. And then the ribbon across the top you already have cut. So make sure, and Sonny was going to go over the importance of cutting the fabric real quick, along with, making sure that they are perfectly square. And if you have a directional fabric, the importance of what that needs to look like when we sew it one way and then turn it right side out. So I'll let her kind of talk about that real quick.
All right, and Nate, if we can go ahead and go to the overhead camera and we'll see how close I got it. There we go. Oh, that not too bad. So what Bethany was talking about is when you do prep these squares, it really is important that they are honest to goodness square. I mean, they're square. And I mean, it sounds kind of maybe odd to say it that way, but if you're a little crooked, what'll happen is when you make your little piece like this, it just won't look as nice. So what we really want you to do is, if you have never used or never purchased a rotary cutter, mat, and a ruler, now's a great time to do it, because this really allows you to cut nice and straight, keep it nice and even. Now, if you are good with scissors, that's what you need. I mean, that's fine, but really rotary cutter and blade for this is really very important.
And that's what I use to cut our pieces today.
Yeah.
And it makes it easy because you can cut multiple layers at once.
At once, that's exactly
So
right.
I cut the front and the back at the same time and only have to do one cut.
Yeah, and even if you are, you're doing many different ones, that also makes a big difference. And
Correct.
here's the other piece, and I'm stealing all of Bethany's props over here, but what I want you to notice, if you have a directional pattern, like these little Christmas trees, see how they are going, I have them going straight up and down. The back has to actually go, when she sews this, it has to go in the opposite direction, because guess what? When you fold them up, it's going to be showing the back in a different angle, right? So you just want to make sure that, if this is my front, when we're placing these together, we're actually going to place them like this so that they will fold up properly. So that's really important, right, Bethany?
Correct.
You were showing me and I'm like, oh, I wouldn't have thought about that. So it's really important for that.
And some of our other prints, it's not really necessary, but for the trees, we definitely don't want our trees going in different directions once it's folded up. If it happens, you probably won't, nobody would probably notice it but you, but it just looks very professionally done and very clean when our fabrics are going in the right direction.
And same with the little bells. I mean, that was something that you had mentioned as well to me, is making sure the bells are in the right direction as well. So, so we just wanted to make sure your squares are cut very precisely. And then
measure twice, cut once, right?
Exactly. And then make sure that if you do have a directional pattern, that you're thinking about how it's going to look when you flip it up. All right. So Nate, we're going to go back to our other camera, and Bethany's going to get started sewing.
So what we're going to do is line up our square. You can make sure these are pressed. There's no wrinkles, nice and smooth. You can pin this if you like around, if that's what you need to do. For me, I'm just gonna kind of go for it. So we're gonna start, and do you want me to show that? Or
yeah,
I think that might help, and then me trying to explain it. So I drew a little diagram today because it's easier to see it here than on my fabric. So this is how we're going to sew around these squares, and all of these are going to be sewn the same way. You're going to start on one side. It doesn't really matter, you choose, but you're not going to start in the corner. You're going to start in near the corner, maybe just a little bit in. You want to leave an opening. This is our opening right here, where you're not going to sew, because remember, our fabrics are right sides together when we're stitching around, but we need to be able to turn them right sides out. So that's what that opening is for, and we'll close that after we turn them. But for stitching them together, we're going to start here and stitch a few stitches in, leave our needle down, turn the fabric, and continue sewing to the next corner, leave the needle down. So when you pivot, you're going to want to leave your needle down. These little red marks are for where we're gonna cut after we sew our square together. So we're gonna trim the excess fabric off the corners completely. Just just be sure you don't hit your cut your
Yep.
stitches, or else you have to restitch that corner. But we want to trim the excess fabric off the corners because when we turn it, we want our corners to be nice and sharp and crisp. And that bulk fabric, extra fabric, makes it bulky and it makes it harder to get a sharp point. And for a Christmas tree, we want to have sharp, clean
Yeah, we want
points.
nice,
It looks
clean
really
points,
nice.
exactly. Yeah.
We're also going to make 2 little cuts in right here and right here where we stitched going out the edge of the fabric. This is going to help us create a nice fold when we turn our fabric, so that these little opening pieces just easily fold right in. We'll press it and it'll have a nice straight line across there. And actually is so nice that it's almost hard to find where your opening is
Yeah.
once you press it. And then we're going to do a little stitch around to close that. So wanted to show you a little diagram to explain exactly what I'm going to do before we start sewing. We have a question?
They would like to know if you have ever used a contrasting fabric for the reverse side, and if
Oh.
so, how does that work? Well,
I think
That's a great idea. So if you didn't hear the question, people were
Yeah.
asking if you could use different, does it have to be the same fabric on both sides, or could it be different? It absolutely could be different. And I
Yeah.
actually didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
That's why I love doing these classes. Creativity starts flowing and we get some really cool
So
ideas.
if you think about it, if you use like green behind or whatever, the green would show in the front. So
Yeah.
great idea. Great.
I think it's
idea.
just another way to take this
Yeah.
project to the next level. So what a good idea.
Yeah.
Now I want to make another one doing different fabrics. Bring back.
All right.
Any other questions?
yeah, if we could just speak to the size of the squares and
Oh.
kind of how you.
Okay, great.
step
That's
So
a
I
good
can do
question. So what I chose to do for this project is, this is a door hanger. You could adjust these squares to be a huge wall hanger. You could make them smaller to make, and just do maybe 3 to make an ornament. It's totally up to you. I chose for the door hanger because I wanted it to hang and have some jiggle. I started with a 6.5 inch square for the biggest, and then I just sized down 1 inch for each of these. So 6.5, 5.5, 4.5, 3.5, 2.5. Because I really didn't want my top one to be so small that it was
couldn't see
challenging
it,
to
yeah.
turn and
Yeah.
sew. So that's the sizes that I chose, and I think it kind of came out pretty evenly spaced and pretty darn cute.
Yeah.
So that's what I chose, and those sizes are in the written instructions for this size door hanger. So I hope that helps answer that question. Anything else?
Just one more. Are
Okay.
we using the standard quarter seam allowance, 4-inch seam allowance?
So what I chose to do for this one, just to make it easy for everybody, because we want to make sure our sewing all the way around the squares is pretty on point, like precise for all of them, and we get nice good edges, is I'm actually going to line the right edge of the fabric with the right edge of my foot. Now you can choose to do something different if you want to sew it a little closer to the edge or a little further in. It's totally up to you.
And-
But whatever you choose, do it the same for all of them, so they match up.
Yeah, and Bethany, I think there are 1/4-inch feet. So if
There
someone
are.
wants to use a 1/4-inch foot, we just chose not to do that. So it's
Mhm.
it's a little bit between a 1/4 and a 1/2-inch
Mhm.
seam, but it really is, these are very forgiving, right?
Yes.
So you can
Yes.
really do a little bit of anything with that.
Correct.
Thank you.
All right, so like I said, we're lining up. I'm actually gonna start a little away from the corner as I showed you in that diagram.
So they can see the
Oh, that's
diagram
perfect.
behind,
That's
so
perfect.
I'll just do that.
I have to take
So
my
you're
shoe
just
off.
gonna start here and go all the way around.
I think your cord is on top of my pedal. All right, I'm finding it. I'm finding my foot under here, my foot control. All right, so I'm gonna hold my threads and I'm just gonna lower my needle. And my back stitch is over here, so I'm gonna just do a couple of stitches in. Move you out. And go back to that. And while my needle is down, I'm gonna lift my foot and pivot my fabric. And now my fabric is lined up with the right edge of my foot. I'm gonna zoom in a little bit so you guys can see a little better. I know it's a little hard to see. And then we're just gonna sew around. Now, as you get to the corner, if you wanna do that last stitch, you know, with your wheel on the side of the machine, just so you don't go too far. That's a good idea until you get comfortable. If you do go too far, just take it back a stitch.
Bethany, while you're sewing, yesterday while we were practicing, I was like, man, you came like right there at that perfect point. How do you know when to stop? And what did you,
Practice.
yeah, I was gonna say, what did you
Lots of
tell me?
practice.
You've made a few
Absolutely.
of these little squares, I think.
I've made a few. You get used to it.
Yeah.
But there are times where I go a little too far. I have to take it back, or I didn't go far enough. And I have to move my fabric back around.
And also, as you're sewing around, you're just set up for a normal straight stitch. So I think stitch length between, 2.5 to 3 is a good stitch length. And then just a normal straight center needle straight stitch. I keep saying center needle because some machines have either a left needle or you can change your needle position, but we want a center needle straight stitch for this.
And I set mine to 3. So now I'm going to sew. I'm back at the same side I started on. So I'm going to sew in, and then I'm going to stop, and I'm going to sew out. Show the back stitch. There you go, all the way to the edge. Use my little thread cutter, and there's our square, and I have my little opening, and I'm going to trim my threads real quick, and then we're going to pass this back over to Sonny and let her turn it. So Nate, if you want to switch back over to that camera, perfect.
There we go. All right. So guys, I've got 2 things going on here. I have my rotary cutter and mat here, but also we've got a little, we're going to do a little pressing today because we think that pressing this is extremely important. So if you look, this is what Bethany had just done. And this was her diagram. So you see that little opening, pardon me. I'll get up closer
There you
here.
go.
Sorry about that, guys. You're supposed to be able to be in my sewing room with me, right, Bethany? We're supposed to be together.
We can see it.
Yeah, exactly. So this is the diagram. This is what we did. And those little red marks, what Bethany was talking about is we are going to trim across the corners. So you want a nice pair of scissors to do this, that's for sure.
I love those fabric scissors.
Yeah.
And they are for fabric.
They are for
only. I think we talk about that every week.
Yeah,
we do this.
Yeah, so that just has taken the bulk off the edge. So you can see that. But here's the other little snip is on that little corner, right? So on this little corner, you are going to just barely snip into this.
Not cutting our threads that we just stitched.
Not cutting. So I'm trying to concentrate. And those are your cuts, everyone. So you've got your corners trimmed, you cut into that, and this is the beauty. I love this little trick of this opening because when I do turn this inside out or right side out, whatever you want to, however you want to talk about it or think about it, right?
Right.
Is I'm just going to do that. What Bethany and we're going to use a point turner and we're going to iron this. But what you'll see is because we have those little opening, when you fold this,
Because we did those little snips.
it folds it right in. Isn't that fabulous?
Nice
So
and straight.
for any of you who ever turn things inside out, think about using this same technique. It's not just for this. This is a great technique for everything. And I forgot, Bethany, so I'm glad. This is a point turner, everyone. And so we are truly going to make sure that our points are nice and pushed out.
I also like to run mine along the
edge.
seams.
Yeah, great
To
idea.
get them nice and crisp and clean.
Yeah,
It
great
helps
idea.
with pressing it really nicely too.
So it just holds that nice,
Mhm.
nice and flat. For any of you, I mean, people use all sorts of things for point turners. A true point turner is not super sharp. So just be aware that if I had someone, say, oh, I want to use a stiletto or something like that, those are not the best things to use because you will ruin the point. So you really want something a little bit, like this, a great point turner.
And I think in the instructions, I called it a corner tool.
Corner tool.
That's another name
Yeah.
it can go by as well.
Yeah. So now that we have this turned, and again, look at that. I love that little
We don't
tip.
even have to fold it in. It
Yeah,
does it
you
for
don't.
us.
It does it for us, exactly. Now that I've got this, I am going to
I did
use
make
our
sure it was
iron.
on.
Yeah, thank you, Bethany. And here's the thing, guys, is ironing as you go. This is, and actually Singer just came out with a whole new set of irons, and it is just fabulous. I'm just ironing as I go. I've got it set on the cotton setting. If you are so inclined, you can actually use the steam as well. But check that out. So I'm just gonna put that back over here
I'm gonna move it
so we don't
So
hurt
I
you.
don't-
Yeah,
just for the time being. Don't.
yeah. So
burn
there
ourselves.
is.
But look how nice and clean and sharp that looks.
And you
with
can't
those
even
points.
see where that
Mm-mm.
opening is. I think I can't
Now
even
you can't
see.
even, like I
There
said,
it
it's
is.
hard to find it.
There it is. So there's your
perfect.
opening. So that's pretty cool.
But
So
now we need to sew the opening shut.
we do need to sew the opening shut. So now we're gonna go back to Bethany, if we would, Nate.
Pass this along. He's on
There,
top of
oh,
it.
thank you. That was perfect.
Oh, I can't even.
See where.
There it is. But see how we turned our fabric and we've got the trees going in opposite directions. So when we do go to fold it, it'll fold perfectly and turn up like we needed it to. So now we're going to sew around the outside edge. Again, with a straight stitch, but this is an opportunity. If you want to use a decorative stitch on your machine, you can do so. But I'm just going to do a straight stitch around it. And again, I'm lining up with the right edge of my fabric. And this time I'm just going to start in the corner. There's no need to start in the middle here. Let me find my little foot. I always like to start nice and slow. I don't want it to get away from me.
Bethany, as you're doing this, certainly there are people that would want to turn that by hand, but I am not a hand sewing person.
Yeah.
I have to admit, machines have become the way of my world.
Yes.
And so that's what we were talking about. This is just another way of stitching this together. The other thing that I think is really kind of important, if you do choose a decorative stitch, you want to make sure that you have the same thread in top and bobbin, because when you turn it up, you will see the bottom side. So that's why we kind of said straight stitch might be better for us for this. And then maybe go back and do some decoration later, you know, that sort of thing. So it's kind of important that way to do that.
And we chose to do a contrasting thread.
Yeah.
So that you can see it on camera, but also adds a little fun decoration.
All right.
Trim that right there, and there it is, all the way around, and it's sewed our opening shut. I'll trim my threads, and the next step we're going to do is go back to Sonny. I know, Nate, we keep switching you back and forth, but thank you.
We appreciate that, because what we are going to do, and in your instructions, everybody, in your instructions, it does tell you exact measurements, but basically what you want to do is you kind of want to make it look nice, right, Bethany? I mean,
and when I first made this project, I kind of eyeballed it.
yeah.
And then for the instructions, I went back and measured what I had created to be a little more detailed for those of y'all making this at home.
Yeah.
But we're going to be folding up the corners to essentially kind of make a triangle look. And that's what's going to make our points going out in the tree. And we're going to be tacking those in place. Now, once we tack them, then we can start piecing each one together.
And so I'm just going to do a quick finger press because we kind of put that iron a little bit different. Now, what you really want to do, so we've got our largest piece here. And
start with the biggest one.
Start with the biggest one, right? And what Bethany did is she's going to do this for the second one. But what we did is we did a little tack, and it was just, how did you tell me, Bethany, how you set up your machine for
I
the tack?
set my machine to a zigzag stitch,
Okay.
which on this machine is there on a C.
Yeah.
And then I set my stitch length to 0 because I don't want it going back and forth. I just want it going side to side, but
Right.
in the same place to tack it in place.
So that's what we did here is you have already tacked this one.
Correct.
right?
It's just
So you've
pinning the
already got that
front and the
tacked.
back. And again, you're not going to see this tack because we're going to put something on top of it.
Right.
So it doesn't really matter what color thread you use. I'm just using the same one that's already in the machine.
So the second one,
Mhm.
we're gonna fold up, but this is the beauty of how you've done this, is we're going to, so we've got our largest one. So we start with the
Let's
large
zoom
one.
in a little
Okay.
closer so
All
they can
right,
see these details.
all right,
The piecing together is what really brings this whole thing together.
yeah,
So you have the first one folded up.
First
You want to
step
make sure this point and this point are lined up. You don't want it off to one side or
Okay.
the other, or else your tree is going to look crooked.
all right.
And the next
The
one you're going to
next
fold up
one,
and line up point
point to
all
point,
going
all the
straight.
way up, okay.
And then this bottom edge is actually going to come to the right to the top of this point.
Okay, so hopefully y'all can see that.
And then we'll pin that in place.
All right,
And what happens is when you tack this one, it not only tacks the front to the back, but it also tacks it to the one behind it.
and that's what makes it
So you don't have to
swing.
keep tacking them
That's
over and
this-
over and over again,
yeah.
but that's what gives it its motion is we're only
Yeah.
tacking down the center of the tree.
All right, so I am gonna pin this, and I'm gonna pin it a little bit low. So I just put in a pin there, and I went through, did want to make sure I didn't catch the back, so I went through everything, so now it's all together. And then Bethany's just gonna tack right in that corner,
Yeah.
everybody, so, all right, so
I'll tack
again,
that one. We're
Nate,
gonna-
here we go, we're switching
This is
off
what
on you
teamwork looks
again.
like. We always say every week, it's so much fun to sew with someone.
Yeah, it is,
So
so
I
we're
kinda
gonna move
tack
over.
it-
There, perfect.
Perfect. I tack it right where this little corner thread is, and then make sure that it comes through to the back. So
All
put that
This
under
is-
here.
So I know we've got a bunch of people thinking, how can I do this at home and what else should I be trying? Bethany, you and I have talked about like doing little circles for snowmen or
Mhm.
little pumpkins for Halloween or all sorts, same principles, right?
Now, I don't know if you guys can see that, but my fabric's not moving. My needle is just going back and forth because I set my stitch length to 0. So it's not moving through the machine. The needle is just going back and forth in the same spot, just like if you were to sew on a button.
Yeah.
So we have a zigzag stitch that's not moving. I'm going to trim this. See right here, it's tacked right there. So I can remove my pin and trim my threads. The front and the back, we want it to look nice from both sides. See how it caught that back one for the one below. I can trim these. Go. So it caught it on the back and on the front. And now look, it pivots and it swings and moves. I think that's Sonny's favorite
It
part.
is, it makes me smile because I think what else can we do with it,
I
right?
know.
So what else can we do with it?
Perfect.
So, what,
I gotta, for time's sake, I wanted to kind of be proactive because what we just did is the same step that you're gonna do repeatedly for all of these pieces. I just went ahead and did the top 3 and then we're just gonna come back in and add it.
Yeah,
And I'll
and tack
tack that
this
one
on.
on.
but honestly, what I keep thinking of is, I keep going back to the snowman,
I think that would
everybody.
be so cute.
And just think about your jolly snowman just swinging away on.
I know.
I just think it's great. But everyone, are there any questions for us, ladies? Because this is like, you have, you're getting ready for the holidays. You need something kind of special to hang on your wall or on your door. And this is super fast and easy, right?
It is. And because you're kind of doing the same step over and
Yeah.
over for each square and each piece as you piece it together. I mean, this is a project that
just-
I feel like a beginner sewist could do, or if you have a child that's interested in sewing, this could be a fun project that they
Great
could
project
do
to start.
for their
yeah.
bedroom door, to hang on their bedroom door, and
Oh,
maybe
fun.
let them pick out the fabrics that they want to use.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's a fun way to get kids interested into sewing and
Yeah.
crafting. And this
Exactly.
doesn't take very long to do. So
It doesn't.
it's a quick project.
Yeah. All right.
I'll
So
tack
we're
this
gonna
last
do the
one.
last tack. Yeah, question.
Whenever you need to attach it.
Okay, sure.
So maybe you can
Yeah.
unpin and pin there again.
So what I'm doing is, this is,
You can scoot over.
Oh,
just a little
sorry.
bit. Yep, there we go. Perfect.
I am lining this one because I already sewed these on together, but lining the base of this one to the top of this point, okay? And I want to make sure that all of my points are lined up so that they're nice and straight. If you want to be really particular, you can get a ruler out and measure and make sure that they go straight all the way up and down, so that your tree is nice and straight and not, you know, leaning and falling over. But this will have movement when it's all said and done anyways. But when it's just hanging, you want it to look like it's nice and straight. And in the instructions, I did tell you how much I folded them up each time for each piece. It's a little less each time so that you can get the same shape for all of these, even though they're different sizes. So that's written in the instructions. I think this first one was like 2 3/4 inch up, and then like maybe 2.5 to 1.5. I don't know. It was one. I think this top one was only 1 inch folded up. So you can look at those instructions for those specific details.
Yeah.
Does that
And
help
then-
answer that question?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the tacking is going to be in the corner, in the, like,
So once we pieced this one on top of here, we
Yeah.
tacked here,
Yeah.
and then it became attached, right? And then we're
Yeah.
gonna tack this one here to attach it to this one.
Yeah.
And then it comes through on the back, and you'll have your little tacks across the back. It's hard to show that. I'm zoomed in on this camera, so
Yeah.
it's a little hard. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna
all right,
tack this one on real quick.
and then they'll be
Any
able
other
to see.
questions while I'm doing that?
I don't see any right now. Just have a few comments. basically over the tree fabrics.
Yeah.
And so, you know, maybe just checking the directional.
Yeah,
setup of
so
your fabric, so.
I noticed that when we were doing it. We talked about how important it is to make sure your fabric is going in opposite directions when you're folding it, but it's also important to make sure that you
Yeah.
cut your fabric in the right direction.
There you go.
This is how it should be. This is what happens when you do it late at night and you're really tired
But
and you're rushing to get it ready. So again, with directional fabric, you're going to want to cut it your square almost like in a diamond shape,
Yeah.
so that when you actually fold it up in a diamond shape here, it's going the right way. Not like what I did for today's example. So learn from my mistake.
But it's that's right.
But
Right.
it, you know,
Yeah.
it's fun. It's honestly,
It is personal preference.
I noticed it, and I, you know,
Yeah.
it is what it is.
Yeah.
But I think if you had, like someone suggested a different fabric on the back and the little trees were kind of going this way, I don't think it would look bad at all. I think it would be really fun.
Yeah.
So it's totally up to you how you want that to swing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, so now we have them all tacked together. Let me zoom out a little bit. Oh, or in. There we go. So now we have them all tacked together. I went ahead and did the top 3 before the class just because of the sake of time. But Sonny is actually going to show you.
Actually,
no,
Bethany,
wait.
let's just stay there
Let's do
so we
this.
don't.
Let's do the
yeah.
ribbon.
Okay, all right, the ribbon first.
So this ribbon right here is actually from Michael's. This is a
I love this
beautiful
ribbon.
green velvet. I love the texture of this.
Yeah.
The ribbon that we cut today is the right size for our door to be able to go over a door that has like a handle bar that comes across that you would push down on to open the door. If you have a doorknob that you actually have to turn, this loop is not going to fit over that doorknob. So what I recommend doing is taking your ribbon and going to your doorknob and measuring a loop
Plus
that
a little bit.
plus extra that will fit over that, and
Yeah.
give yourself some extra because you are
Yeah.
going to have to crisscross it and sew it. And that's what we're going to do here. So we just overlap it, and you can do this 2 ways. You can overlap it and place it right behind there and tack it. But if that's too hard to hold this ribbon in place, you can tack your ribbon first right here and then place it under there so it doesn't come undone. For sake of time, I'm going to try to do it all in one even swoosh. And we're going to do that same zigzag tack that we did earlier. You only have to go back and forth a few times. You don't have to do it a whole lot. And my ribbon gets caught on my foot. There we go. There you go. It's tacked on
There
there,
we go.
front and back. And if your tails are too long or you want to trim those, you definitely can. But I think we're okay.
And Bethany, I love that you can use different ribbons. You can
Mhm.
do different things like that. And I think it is, I think it's great how you can just really make this your own. And I just kind of feel our trees, you know, we were in a windstorm, so we're good to go with the trees the way they are.
And I think it's
So
cute
it's
like
cute,
this,
yeah,
but it's
yeah.
always fun to add some embellishments.
Yeah.
So in my example, you saw in the instructions, we chose to sew on some bells. I also picked these up from Michael's. With bells, you're gonna have to hand sew these on with a needle and thread, and I sew them on right over where I tack it. So once your bell is in place, you don't even see your tack. So this is a great way to cover your tack. And as you know, it gives some really fun sound to our finished
Yeah,
project for your
Yeah,
door.
that's great.
But you don't always have to use bells.
Yeah.
What are some other things that we could use?
We had talked about using some buttons.
Oh, yes, these are
Those
great.
are the fabulous buttons. I
These are
love
the
those.
super
You got the-
glittery, like rhinestone
Yeah.
buttons that we got from Michael's. And you could actually use your sewing machine to sew these on
Yeah.
with our button foot. So that's
Yeah.
another option. Pom poms are another great idea.
Great idea. Yeah.
I think there's a lot of fun things that you could do. You could do a star at the top.
Oh, that's a great idea.
think
There
that
are
would be
star,
There are star buttons too.
star buttons. That's what I was thinking, is all of that. So, oh, wow. All right. So
So there it is.
that's it.
That is
That
it. I
was
mean,
easy. Yeah, easy peasy.
like I said, it's
right? Yeah.
repeating some of the same steps over and over. So it's a good practice project for
Yeah.
sewing.
So are there any questions about this? This is a great, as Bethany said, so I'm going to go back here. There we go. So as Bethany said, this is a great project for beginning sews, but also for children, you know, get them started. I can see like doing 3 for maybe a ornament for your
Ornament.
tree,
Mhm.
or a couple more, or make them bigger for a wall hanging. I mean, there's
Mhm.
just so many things you can
And
do
I
with
think there's
this.
some quilters out there that could really quilt these pieces individually and then piece them together and really be creative with these. I love the idea of doing 2 different fabrics on each
Yeah,
one.
That's a
Adding
great
some
idea.
solids in with some prints is really
Yeah.
fun. Some plaids or stripes would
Yeah.
be fun.
I was thinking for a kid's bedroom door, I was thinking zebra stripes.
Oh, that
really
would be
fun.
fun.
You
I
could do
love
all
doing
sorts of things.
non-traditional fabrics sometimes for the
Yeah.
holidays too. That's why I
Alright.
said, let the kids pick it out.
Yeah.
Any
So,
questions?
Yeah.
They would like to see a close-up of the right side of the tree, please.
Did I do
So-
something wrong?
And they're coming up with some great suggestions, like putting buttons on the corner of the
So-
branches to make
Oh, fun.
decorations.
Yeah.
And maybe just your suggestion, obviously, this again is preference, but what would you think for maybe? Obviously, again, based on how large a wall you're covering. but
Yeah.
what kind of size would you-
I think for the size on the wall hanging, the best suggestion would be to maybe cut out some squares with paper and
Yeah.
fold them and pin them together and hang it on the
That's a
wall and
great
see if
idea.
it's the right
Yep.
size that you want, and then measure those once you get them. That way you're not wasting fabric.
Right.
I think paper would be an easy way to kind of get the size that you want, because really, it really just depends on how big you want it on your wall. I think you could honestly, we had this
Yeah.
hanging on the wall in the previous
Yeah, we
classes
did.
in the corner. I don't know if y'all noticed that in the previous classes, but we had it hanging up there.
Yeah.
You could totally hang this on the wall. You don't, it's small. But I
I-
think it's cute.
I think I would almost start with a 12 by 12
Mhm.
as my beginning, and then just kind of take, and Bethany, you said you
These are
did
1-inch
1
variables
inch.
here.
I think I do 2-inch variables at least. So
Yeah.
start with 12 and then go down. So I think that would be a great place to start. And I love the idea about paper, trying that out first
Yeah.
to make sure you know. Sometimes though, I have to say, I don't know about anybody out there, Bethany, but for me, I've got quite a fabric stash. So sometimes it's easier to cut fabric than paper.
Scrap fabric.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
So,
so I think that's a good place to start. Again,
yeah,
this is, we like to create, a baseline project
Yeah.
for you guys to be able to kick off your creativity, and we
Right.
want to see what you guys create when you're done. But we have one more project to show you. This is our bonus project today that we mentioned earlier.
so are we good with questions, ladies?
Okay.
All right, cool. Because I'm so excited. I love this little
I
one. So
know.
this is really
So
cool.
this one actually was something that I got an idea from my mom. She loves to decorate her dining room table for every holiday,
Yeah.
and it's always so beautiful. And she sews as well. That's who I learned to sew from. And so she has on her dining room table in the holidays these little mini stockings that she puts her silverware in and sets them on the plate
Table. I think
for
that's
each
so neat.
setting.
Oh,
And
how
she'll stick a
cute.
little candy cane in there or something else. And I just think that these are so cute. So this is our bonus project. And I have a couple here that we've made. And I
this-
love this one. I think
this
kids would
one,
love this one.
it's
It's
the rainbow.
snowflakes, but rainbow fabric.
Yeah.
And so, and we did some different, here, we'll switch to this one and I'll show it up
All
close.
right, there we go.
So here's one, and we put a little button and a ribbon. So again, this could be an ornament.
Yep.
This could hold a gift card. This could be a gift tag. You could mail this in the mail in an
Yeah.
envelope to someone with a little note and,
Yeah.
and personalize these. I think for, you know, your table setting, if you were having guests over,
It's great.
you could make this have a little thank you note and a candy cane and let this be their party favor after they're done with their dinner. I love this little kids one. I mean, it doesn't have to be for little kids. I think it's just so playful and whimsical. And I love, we use that little
The
rhinestone
bright-
button.
Yeah,
So again, this is a fun, quick little project. I feel like kids could also help with this project if they
Right.
wanted. Amy is going to drop the instructions for this in the chat, including the pattern. I traced it for you to make it even easier. You don't have to make your own stocking pattern. We'll include that
Yeah.
with it, and you'll have the full written instructions for the little mini stockings.
all right.
So that's your bonus project this week. We hope you enjoy that. We try to
And-
throw in something extra to challenge
Yeah,
you.
yeah, exactly. No, it's wonderful. And so, Amy, are there any questions for us? Because I can't believe we're done.
I know.
And this is like, oh, I feel a little sad. We were talking, now we get to take down our Christmas tree in the middle of the year. So anyway,
I think I may just take it home as is.
Yeah,
Just
there we
leave it
go.
up till Christmas.
There we
It's
go.
easier than putting it back at the box.
that's right. That's
We do
right.
Not have any questions. So
All
they
right.
must be sewing away.
Good,
Yeah.
good. We're excited. And we
Well.
want to see your finished projects. I know that we have to go a little faster for the time that we have during the live class. So if you continue sewing and you finish it, we definitely want to see it. So the
Yeah.
best way for us to see your finished projects and the creativity that you came up to add your own flair to our finished project, use the hashtags Make It With Michaels, hashtag Michael Classes, and hashtag Singer Sewing.
So that way we can see what you've been doing and what
Yes.
you're up to. So.
Amy's going to drop those hashtags in the chat as well. If you have any questions, just let us know.
And you know what? Since this is our last in our series, what we are going to say is keep an eye out, because Bethany and I, who knows when we'll show up, but Michaels and Singer, we always love to work together, show you classes, show you different things,
Yes.
and we're excited. So keep an eye out. And so when we'll be coming back with you. So
Do
everyone,
more sewing projects.
thank you so much. I hope that you enjoyed your time with us and got a good start to your holiday sewing.
And again, this was recorded today. So if you need to go back and sew along with us later, this will be available on Michael's YouTube channel tomorrow and on their website in a couple of days. So you can go back and watch that later and sew along.
All right. So Nate, I think that's it. Thank
Think
you,
we're good.
everybody.
Bye, guys.
Bye.